A $15 copper pipe bent into the exact shape of the Great Pyramid, placed over a garden bed. No wires, no batteries, no fertilizer. Within days, the soil beneath it becomes electrically active. Roots grow toward the copper, seeds germinate faster. One agronomist measured double the potato yield from plants grown under this shape versus plants grown without it. A Canadian farmer claimed 36 times more food per square foot inside a pyramid greenhouse, built to these same proportions. A Czech radio engineer spent 10 years proving to a government patent office that this shape has measurable physical effects on matter, and they granted him the patent. The shape is a pyramid. The angle is 51 degrees. The material is copper. And the reason you have never been taught this in any gardening book, any agriculture class, or any extension office is the same reason you have never been taught about earth batteries or biochar. It does not require a repeat purchase. This is the electric soil secret. When the right geometry meets the right metal over the right soil, a passive energy system forms that collects atmospheric charge from above, generates biological electricity from below, and feeds plants from 4 directions at once with zero ongoing cost. But before I reveal the full system, if you are a backyard grower sick of paying for toxic fertilizers, I have put together a free $0 harvest blueprint for you. It reveals 7 zero-cost fertilizers that actually outperform Miracle-Gro, and the lazy no-dig method that eliminates weeding permanently. One of my readers, Dan, used the fertilizer trick inside, and his tomatoes grew double the size of his neighbors. To get instant access to the blueprint and a weekly forgotten gardening hack, click the first link in the description below, or scan the QR code on the screen right now if you are watching on TV. The science stretches back to 1841, the suppression stretches back to 1936, and the entire system costs less than a bag of Miracle. Story starts not with a pyramid, but with a razor blade. In 1949, a Czechoslovakian radio engineer named Karel Durable walked into the patent office in Prague with an application that would take a decade to approve. His invention was a small cardboard model, shaped exactly like the Great Pyramid of Cheops. Its purpose, according to the filing, was to maintain the sharpness of razor blades without any external source of energy. No mechanical sharpening, no chemical treatment, no electricity. Just a hollow pyramid made from a material that does not conduct electricity. Oriented so that its 4 sides face the 4 cardinal directions, with a razor blade resting inside on a small platform at 1/3 of the pyramid's height. The patent examiners told him to leave. Durable did not leave. He spent years developing a theoretical basis for why the device worked, arguing that the pyramid shape concentrated the Earth's magnetic field lines, creating a microenvironment that restored the crystalline structure of the blade's edge. The theory was unconventional. The results were not. The chief patent examiner, a metallurgical specialist, took a prototype home and tested it personally for 10 years. 16 razor blades completed 1,778 shaves total, an average of 111 shaves per blade. Without the pyramid, each blade lasted about 5. In 1959, patent number 91,304 was granted by the Czechoslovak Republic. Now here's the detail that changes everything. Durball's patent states that the pyramid was tested, but adds that other geometric shapes may also produce regeneration. He was not claiming that pyramids are magic. He was claiming that specific geometric proportions interact with electromagnetic fields in measurable, repeatable ways. The pyramid was simply the most effective shape he tested, and the one feature that made it work was the angle. 51 degrees and 52 minutes. The exact angle found on the casing stones of the Great Pyramid of Giza. That angle is not arbitrary. When a 4-sided pyramid is built to that slope, something extraordinary happens mathematically. The perimeter of the base divided by twice the height equals pi 3.14159. The slant height of each face divided by half the base length equals phi 1.618, the golden ratio. A single geometric structure encodes the 2 most fundamental constants in mathematics simultaneously. No other pyramid angle does this. No other three-dimensional shape does this. The builders of Giza either knew these numbers or stumbled upon a proportion so perfectly tuned to the mathematical fabric of reality that it encodes both constants to 3 decimal places of precision. The chance of that happening by accident has been calculated at roughly 1 in 500. Here is the shareable detail. The golden ratio, 1.618, is the single most recurring proportion in biological life on Earth. It governs the spiral of a nautilus shell, the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower head, the branching pattern of oak trees, the proportions of the human skeleton, and the double helix of DNA itself. A copper pyramid built to the Cheops angle is not built to a random ratio. It is built to the ratio that living organisms already use to organize themselves. The pyramid's geometry speaks the same mathematical language as the biology beneath it. That fact alone should stop you in your tracks. But Carol Dribal was working with cardboard. What happens when that same shape is built from the second most electrically conductive metal on Earth? What happens when the pyramid is not just a passive geometric container, but an active conductor sitting inside the planet's magnetic field, surrounded by atmospheric electricity, and placed directly over living biological systems? That is exactly what a Canadian farmer decided to find out. In the early 1970s, a man named Les Brown built a wooden pyramid on his farm in Canada. Not a model. A full-size structure, 16 feet on each side at the base, 11 feet high, with walls sloped at exactly 51 degrees to match the Great Pyramid. He covered 3 sides with plexiglass and used the north wall for insulation. Then he started growing food inside it. The results were immediate and dramatic. Cucumbers grew several inches in a single night. Tomato plants produced fruit at a rate Brown had never seen in decades of farming. He estimated that his pyramid greenhouse produced roughly 36 times more food per square foot than any conventional growing space. But it was not just the volume. The quality was different. Plants grown inside the pyramid were visibly healthier, exhibited less insect damage, and produced fruit with richer flavor than identical varieties grown outside. Brown discovered something else. He placed water inside the pyramid for several days, then used it to irrigate plants growing outside the structure. The pyramid-treated water produced measurably better growth than untreated water from the same source. He placed food inside the pyramid and found that it dehydrated instead of rotting. Bananas remained edible for weeks. Meat dried into jerky without spoiling. Milk did not sour. The same preservation effect that Antoine Bovis had reported after visiting the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid in the 1930s, where dead animals had mummified instead of decomposing. Think about what that means. A hollow, geometric shape with no power source, no refrigeration, no chemical treatment was preventing bacterial decomposition. Something about the proportions of the space was inhibiting microbial activity. That is not mysticism. That is an electromagnetic effect. And it was repeatable across every pyramid, built to the correct angle. Brown published his findings in a book called The Pyramid. He shared his construction dimensions freely. He encouraged everyone to experiment. And then he made an observation that nearly cost him his life. He connected the apex of his largest pyramid to the ground directly beneath it using sheep's wool threaded between 2 copper attachments. The energy discharge blew him 20 feet across the ground before he could complete the connection. Had he used metal wire instead of wool, he believed the current would have killed him. He never experimented with pyramid electricity again. He stuck to plants, but the implication was impossible to ignore. The pyramid was not just preserving food and accelerating growth. It was concentrating energy. Real, physical, measurable energy. And when it was given a conductive path to ground, that energy moved. Les Brown worked with wood and plexiglass. Carol Dribal worked with cardboard. Imagine what happens when the same structure is built from copper, a material with an electrical conductivity of 59 million Siemens per meter, second only to silver, and placed directly over living soil filled with moisture, minerals, and billions of electrically active microorganisms. A Ukrainian defense contractor did not have to imagine. He built 50 of them. In the early 1990s, Alexander Golod began constructing pyramids across Russia and Ukraine. Not small garden models. Massive fiberglass structures, the tallest standing 144 feet high and weighing 55 tons. By 2010, more than 50 pyramids stood across the former Soviet Union. Golod deliberately avoided any metal in the construction, using PVC pipe frames covered in fiberglass sheets. His pyramids were built to what he called the golden section ratio, a steeper profile than the Giza pyramid, but still rooted in the same mathematical constant, phi. What made Golod different was access. He coordinated research teams across prestigious Russian institutions, including the Mechnikov Scientific Research Institute and the Ivanovsky Institute of Virology. Over a decade of experiments, agricultural seeds placed in the pyramids before planting reportedly showed yield increases of 30 to 100%. The pathogenic strength of viruses and bacteria decreased after exposure, and the single most extraordinary claim came from the Russian military. Radar installations detected an energy column extending vertically from the apex of the largest pyramid into the upper atmosphere. It was visible on radar, but with no physical structure, a coherent beam of energy radiating upward from a geometric shape. Now I need to be transparent with you. Golod's research has drawn significant criticism. No peer-reviewed Western journal has confirmed these results. Critics note the studies relied on observational inference rather than controlled double-blind methodology. Some visitors reported feeling nothing. The scientific consensus in the West does not support Golod's claims. But his research was not conducted in isolation. Multiple Russian scientific institutions participated over more than a decade, and the agricultural results align with what Les Brown documented in Canada and what Van Doorn has demonstrated in Europe. And there is one piece of evidence that skeptics have a harder time dismissing. A study indexed on PubMed, the United States National Library of Medicine database, examined the biological effects of a pyramid model built to Egyptian proportions. The researchers found that pre-sowing storage of dry barley seeds inside the pyramid stimulated plant growth. They measured a change in the pH of water inside the structure, and they observed a threefold increase in the rate of decomposition of hydrogen peroxide solution exposed to the pyramid interior. That is a measurable chemical reaction accelerating by 300% inside a geometric shape with no power source. Something is happening inside that geometry that alters the rate at which molecular bonds break. We do not have a complete explanation for why, but we have a measurement that says it does. Yannick Van Doorn is a Belgian agronomist with a degree in agriculture and biotechnology. He has spent over 15 years researching what he calls electroculture, the application of natural electromagnetic energy to improve soil fertility and plant growth. Among his many techniques, pyramids built from copper hold a central place. In 2011, Van Doorn conducted a straightforward experiment. He placed seed potatoes under a copper pyramid for 2 days before planting. The treated potatoes were planted alongside untreated controls from the same batch, in the same soil, with the same water and sunlight. The treated plants showed double the growth and double the yield of the untreated ones. Not 30% more, not 50% more. Double. In workshops across Europe, Van Doorn teaches students to build copper pyramids using standard hardware store pipe. He reports that a copper pyramid placed over a garden bed can produce more than 40 potatoes per plant, compared with the normal 5 to 10. His students report similar results with tomatoes, courgettes, herbs, and leafy greens. The Charged Garden, an electroculture community testing these techniques since 2011, reports that seedlings grown under copper pipe pyramids grow approximately twice as fast and show less insect damage during their early stages. But here is the shareable detail that will change how you think about copper and geometry. Copper is paramagnetic, weakly attracted to magnetic fields and able to amplify them. It is the basis of every electromagnetic coil, transformer, and antenna on Earth. When copper is shaped into a pyramid at the golden ratio angle, it becomes a three-dimensional antenna tuned to specific electromagnetic frequencies. The four triangular faces act as receiving surfaces. The apex acts as a focal point. The interior becomes a resonant cavity where electromagnetic waves can constructively interfere and concentrate. It is not a garden ornament. It is a passive energy collector with no moving parts, no power source, and no expiration date. So why is none of this taught? The answer follows the same pattern as every other suppressed soil technology in this series. In 1974, the same decade Les Brown was growing 36 times more food under his pyramid. The global fertilizer industry was entering its exponential growth phase. American farmers spent $300 million on synthetic fertilizer in 1945. By 1975, that number had passed $3 billion. A permanent geometric structure installed once and never repurchased has no revenue model. A bag of fertilizer that runs out every spring does. The British Electroculture Committee, established in 1918 under the Ministry of Agriculture and staffed with Nobel laureates, spent nearly 2 decades collecting field data documenting substantial yield gains from electrical methods. In 1936, every report was stamped "not for publication" and sealed. The committee was dissolved. Academic citations for electroculture dropped over 90% in the following decades, precisely as fertilizer revenue smashed records year after year. No conspiracy memo was needed. The market simply rewarded the consumable over the permanent. What follows is what the electroculture community has arrived at after decades of independent experimentation. 3 applications from the simplest to the most advanced. Each one works on its own. Combined, they form a system that none of them could create separately. The simplest application is the copper pyramid seed energizer. The construction is straightforward. Use half-inch type M copper pipe from any plumbing supply, cut into 4 base pieces and 4 edge pieces. Not galvanized steel, not PVC wrapped in copper tape, not iron with copper paint. Pure copper. The critical ratio that separates a functioning device from a decoration is this: the edge length equals the base length multiplied by 0.952. That is the exact proportion derived from the Great Pyramid of Cheops. For a 12-inch base, the edges are 11.42 inches. For a 24-inch base, the edges are 22.85 inches. The base pieces connect into a square using 90-degree copper elbow fittings. The 4 edges meet at the apex, joined either by soldering with lead-free solder, which creates the cleanest energy path, or by a 4-way copper fitting sometimes sold as a cross connector. The total material cost for a 12-inch seed charger runs under $15. The detail that most experimenters skip, and the one that every researcher from Durbal to Gola to Van Dorn insisted upon, is orientation. One flat side must face true north, not magnetic north. Adjust for local magnetic declination. Durbal's patent explicitly states that the sides should face the 4 cardinal directions and that the object inside should be oriented north to south. Without this alignment, the device sits inert. With it, the geometry begins interacting with the Earth's magnetic field in the way the patent describes. Seeds are placed on a non-metallic platform, a wooden block, a ceramic tile, or a piece of cardboard, inside the pyramid at roughly 1/3 of the total height from the base. This is the zone corresponding to the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, and the zone where both Durbal and Brown documented the strongest effects. The seeds remain for 2 to 3 days before planting. Van Dorn notes that charging time depends on atmospheric conditions. Seeds charge faster during electrical storms and during a full moon, when atmospheric electromagnetic activity peaks. 3 days in Mersau is a reliable average in calm weather. Water placed inside the pyramid for 48 hours and then used to irrigate seedlings has also been reported to produce measurably faster germination than untreated water from the same source. The second application scales the same proportions over a full garden bed. For a standard 4-foot wide raised bed, the base is 4 feet per side, and the edges are 3 feet 9.5 inches, cut from 3/4 inch or 1 inch copper pipe for structural rigidity. The base frame sits directly on or around the garden bed. The 4 edge pieces meet at the apex, pointing straight up, with one flat side facing true north. The sides do not need to be enclosed with panels. An open frame of copper pipe at the correct angle produces the documented effects on seedling growth rate and pest resistance according to multiple experimenters, including the charged garden community. 2 material warnings that practitioners have learned the hard way. Iron and steel fittings should never be used to connect copper pipe. The Austrian naturalist Victor Schoberger documented that iron tools decreased soil magnetism, increased farmer workload, and created drought-like conditions in surrounding soil. Copper, brass, and bronze did not. The second warning is that copper pipe that has been painted, lacquered, or coated will not function. The raw copper surface requires direct atmospheric contact. The green patina that develops over time is copper carbonate. It protects the metal and does not reduce conductivity. It should not be scrubbed off. The third and most advanced application is where the copper pyramid connects to the underground system that turns a garden bed into a self-feeding, self-watering, electricity-generating organism. This is the configuration that nobody in mainstream agriculture is talking about. The foundation starts with a trench 2 feet deep. The largest logs and branches go on the bottom. Untreated hardwoods only: oak, maple, birch, alder, apple, or cherry. The wood should ideally already be starting to soften. Pressure-treated lumber contains arsenic and chromated copper arsenate that will poison soil and food. Painted or stained wood carries the same risk. Black walnut releases a chemical called juglone that kills most garden plants within its root zone. Cedar and redwood break down so slowly they can stall the entire decomposition process for years. Smaller branches, sticks, and wood chips fill the gaps between the logs. A layer of leaves, grass clippings, or kitchen scraps goes on top for nitrogen. This entire wood layer becomes a water reservoir, a heat engine, and a microbial fuel cell. A single buried log holds several times its own weight in moisture. During dry spells, that stored water wicks back into the surrounding soil. The decomposing microbes generate thermal energy as a byproduct and release electrons, actual electrical current, directly into the surrounding ground. Experienced builders report that irrigation becomes unnecessary entirely after the second year. On top of the wood goes the charcoal zone. Use clean hardwood lump charcoal, not briquettes soaked in lighter fluid and bonded with petroleum binders. Natural lump hardwood charcoal can be bought from the grilling section of a grocery store or made at home using the safest backyard method: a top-lit updraft burn in a steel drum with holes drilled near the bottom for airflow. Always do this outdoors in a clear area away from structures, never enclosed, with water nearby. Once cooled, the charcoal is crushed to roughly gravel size, pieces between 1/4 inch and 1 inch. Here is the step that separates success from disaster. Fresh charcoal must be charged before it goes into the ground. Uncharged biochar is chemically hungry. Its massive internal surface area, up to 9,000 square feet per gram, will absorb nutrients from the surrounding soil like a sponge, temporarily starving the plants instead of feeding them. The charging process is simple. The crushed charcoal soaks for at least 48 hours in compost tea, worm castings dissolved in water, diluted fish emulsion, or diluted urine at a ratio of 1 part urine to 10 parts water. This loads the microscopic pores with nutrients and beneficial microbes, so the biochar starts giving instead of taking from the moment it enters the ground. The charged biochar is then mixed into compost at roughly 10 to 15% by volume and spread 4 to 6 inches deep on top of the buried wood. This charcoal layer becomes a nutrient magnet, an electrical conductor, and a permanent microbial habitat. It will not decompose. It will still be in the ground 100 years from now, still holding charge, still attracting nutrients, still hosting billions of microorganisms. The top layer is 6 to 8 inches of garden soil. This is the root zone, and this is where the galvanic earth battery is installed. A 6-inch piece of copper pipe goes into the soil on one side of each plant. A single galvanized zinc nail goes on the other side, about 8 to 12 inches apart and 6 inches deep. 1 pair per plant is the limit. Too much zinc accumulates over time and stresses the plants. Excess copper harms earthworms and beneficial soil microbes. The biochar-enriched soil between the two metals acts as a superior electrolyte compared to plain dirt. More dissolved ions mean better conductivity and lower resistance. A multimeter pressed to the copper and zinc reads between 0.8 and 1.1 volts. When the reading drops below half a volt, the zinc nail needs replacing. The copper side typically lasts several seasons. The current flowing between the copper and zinc mobilizes nutrients locked in chemical bonds through electrolysis. Roots grow toward the copper through a documented biological response called electrotropism. The zinc slowly corrodes and releases zinc ions into the root zone. This is not waste. Plants need zinc to produce the amino acid tryptophan. Without tryptophan, plants cannot manufacture auxin, the master growth hormone that drives stem elongation, fruit development, and root branching. Without zinc, no tryptophan. Without tryptophan, no auxin. Without auxin, growth stalls. The zinc electrode is consumed by the very biology it powers, atom by atom, season by season. The copper pyramid sits directly over the top of this bed, oriented with one side to true north. What results is a four-layer energy system. From above, the copper pyramid collects atmospheric electromagnetic energy and focuses it downward through the apex into the soil. From below, the decomposing wood generates biological electricity and heat that radiates upward through the biochar layer. In the middle, the biochar-enriched soil between the copper and zinc electrodes runs a galvanic reaction that mobilizes nutrients directly into the root zone. And threading through all of it, the biochar acts as a continuous electrical conductor, connecting the pyramid's atmospheric charge to the biological and galvanic currents underground. The copper pyramid is not just sitting on top of this system, it is the antenna. The buried wood is the fuel cell. The biochar is the wiring. The copper and zinc are the battery. The soil is the electrolyte. And here's the key insight that ties it all together. Biochar increases the electrical conductivity of any soil it is added to. Peer-reviewed studies from multiple countries confirm this. When a copper pyramid sits over biochar-enriched soil, the atmospheric energy collected by the pyramid has a superior conductive pathway into the ground. The biochar carries the pyramid's collected charge deeper into the root zone than plain soil ever could. The pyramid makes the biochar work harder. The biochar makes the pyramid reach further. Remove either piece and the system still functions. Combine them and the effect compounds. That is synergy. The practitioners who take this seriously track their results. An inexpensive refractometer, about $20 online, measures Brix readings on plant leaves every 2 weeks. Brix measures dissolved sugars and minerals, a direct indicator of nutrient density and plant health. Higher Brix means healthier, more nutritious produce that is also more resistant to pests, because insects lack the enzymes to digest high-sugar plant tissue. Some electroculture practitioners report Brix increases of 2 to 3 points within a single month. Voltage readings taken with a digital multimeter, one probe on the copper and one on the zinc, should show 0.8 to 1.1 volts. Plants are photographed beside a ruler every week. Harvests are weighed on a kitchen scale at the end of the season, and critically, a control row is maintained alongside the test bed. Same soil, same water, same sunlight, same seeds, but no pyramid, no buried wood, no charcoal, and no metals. The numbers tell the story. This is how backyard observations become repeatable science. This is how the evidence base that was sealed in a government vault 90 years ago gets rebuilt in the open. There is one final detail that makes the copper pyramid unlike any other garden tool. It does not wear out. Copper develops a green patina over time, a layer of copper carbonate that actually protects the metal beneath from further corrosion. This is why copper roofs on cathedrals last for centuries. The pyramid will outlast the garden bed, the fence, the house, and probably the next 3 owners of the property. The zinc nail needs replacing every few seasons as it slowly donates its ions to the plants. The buried wood fully decomposes in a decade, leaving behind deep, dark, crumbly soil. But the copper pyramid and the biochar will still be there in 100 years, still collecting atmospheric energy, still hosting microbes, still holding nutrients, still quietly doing the work that a $200 billion fertilizer industry would prefer people pay for annually instead. The ancient Egyptians aligned their pyramid to true north with an accuracy of 1/15 of a degree. They encoded pi and the golden ratio into a single structure using nothing but stone and astronomical observation. The same proportions can be achieved with a $15 trip to a plumbing supply and a $2 pipe cutter. The experiment is cheap. The risk is zero. The only variable left is whether it gets built or scrolled past. The fertilizer industry is worth over $200 billion a year. The pesticide market adds another 60 billion. Both depend on repeat purchases every single season. A copper pyramid costs $15 and lasts forever. Biochar costs for about $4 a bag and persists for centuries. A galvanized nail costs pennies. One installation collects atmospheric energy, enhances nutrient uptake, accelerates germination, and gets stronger every year it sits in the ground. Every soil technology that was ever buried, from terra preta to earth batteries to electroculture, has eventually resurfaced because the physics never expires and the evidence never fully disappears. The proof is in the geometry. The test is in the garden. If this changed how you think about what a $15 piece of copper pipe can do, send this video to someone who grows things. The best way to unbury forgotten science is to plant it in every garden on the street. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more stories like this. There is a lot more buried out there, waiting to be found.